thank you for being here today and
Absolutely.
happy day after Mother's Day.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I had your sister on. So the first episode was with my friend Frank and then Hallie. So what were you like as a kid, right? Like what was Madeline? Maddie? Do you want to be called Maddie or Madeline?
Maddie, Madeline, either one is okay.
Yeah, so I guess it's kind of a big question, like, hey, talk about your childhood. But I do think that that's where things start for most people, and I guess even a little bit more specific was like, yeah, what was it like being a kid, and when did like not being sober start for you, right? Like, do you remember what it was like when you first, you know, had a drink or had a smoke, or usually people tend to remember that pretty well.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
definitely do. Growing up, I mean, I lived in a really loving home. My parents still married to this day. They raised me. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad worked and she worked from home, but she stayed home with us and took us to school, all our events. Um, we had a really happy home all the time. She got me in sports. I started soccer at about 4 or 5 years old.
Okay.
And, sports was a big thing for me. I loved playing soccer. It was something I was really good at it from an early age, and I loved
Okay.
it. Um, School was great until I want to say about middle school. I think I knew my parents did like to drink, but I didn't really know what that meant, like what drinking was or what smoking was or what anything really was as a kid. Like I didn't think it was bad, good, whatever it
Okay.
was, but it was just
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
part of their routine. I
Right.
knew that they always had it was it was never a bad thing either. I never thought that my parents did anything bad. It
Okay.
was kind of just what our family was. They needed their time when they got home from work, and I played soccer and I was happy. And I was always a crazy tomboy kid that wanted to play outside and get my knees scraped and play with all the boys in the neighborhood and do whatever was active because I was
Okay.
very not the girly girl like my
Okay.
sister was. um,
Nice. I mean, self-awareness. There we go.
yeah,
Do what you like.
yes.
Yeah.
So when I was about, I mean, my sister was a runaway when I was really young. So when she was just turning a teenager, I want to say maybe a little older than that, she started running away from home. And it really turned our family dynamic. And it was all really focused on her, obviously, like trying to find her. What is she doing? Where is she? Um,
Because she's older, right? She's 7 years older,
she's seven
right?
years older
Okay,
than
right. So
me.
you're the
Yeah.
younger
So
here. And it's just you two, right? You don't have
it's just us. Yeah.
okay, two sisters. Okay, got it. Got
So
it.
when she would run away, it was very hard on my parents, and it my mom and dad would drive around at all night sometimes, looking for
Hmm.
her. She would sneak into our house and steal things or whatever she was doing, but she'd always leave me notes under my pillow. She would leave me notes and she would tell me that she was okay and to
Oh.
not tell mom and dad about it.
When's National Sisters Day? Let's look it up here.
I know, right?
No, that's
So
awesome. I have one older sister, so I mean, I don't have the like. I had another brother, but yeah, it's good. Like I am the two sibling thing. That's special. So
it is
yeah,
special. And it
yeah,
was
yeah,
always really special. But
yeah.
I knew she was okay. I didn't ever tell my parents that she would leave those notes for me. And it's crazy to think, like now that we're older,
Stitches get stitches. No,
I
okay.
know.
You're
And
like
like
yeah,
it probably would have been better. It would probably put my parents at some type of ease. Like now me being a parent, like I could never imagine that.
right. Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's like
Okay,
I
okay.
did what I wanted. I did for my sister. She kept leaving me notes and I knew she was okay and like I knew she loved me. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, she was a crazy one at a really she just went off when she turned I want to say she was 16, so I was about 9. She went
Yeah.
into rehab. They got her into rehab really quickly, and we went through that whole process with her where we go and like she shares her deepest darkest secrets. I didn't know what AA was at the time at all, and I just would go to these meetings with her like as her little sister and just sit and listen to all these crazy old people like talk about how shitty their life was, to be completely honest. Like that's what I thought it was. And I was like, okay, this is lame, but I'll go with my sister because I always wanted to be my sister, be with my sister, whatever it
Yeah.
was.
Okay.
But
That's
so,
awesome.
so
Yeah.
that was kind of my first introduction to like what my sister was doing was bad, was like drugs. But I didn't know if drugs was like a cigarette or like a crack pipe. Like to be completely honest, I didn't
Got
know
it.
what it was.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So that was kind of that. And she kind of got on on board with that for a while. But when went into middle school, I remember being bullied a lot. Like I was never fitting in with anybody. I got bullied by all the quote unquote popular people. And I hated that. I hated it because I just wanted to be liked by everyone. Like literally one time, my mom gave me money to buy a yearbook, which was like 100 something dollars. And I wanted to be liked so bad by everybody. I didn't buy a yearbook. I went to the snack bar and bought $130 worth of like Nutter Butters and I gave them away to everybody in school because I wanted everybody to like me. I
Oh
just,
wow. This is Huntington Beach, right? Is this
yeah,
where you guys grew up? Yeah.
it's in Huntington
Yeah.
Beach.
Okay.
So I did crazy things like that. But I feel like,
Well, what was the result of that? People
I
were
feel
like,
like,
"Oh, thanks for the candy," and then they
yeah.
just
And I
walked
felt
away.
like, oh my gosh, they like me today. But the next day was just the same, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, yeah. Well, maybe that's yeah. Everyone wants to be understood and
Absolutely.
loved and seen. I mean, I think it obviously plays out differently. I mean, I had a weird adolescence where I was always doing things for attention and
Yep.
dressing up, and some of it was like creativity and making movies, but it's like no, I think there was like some wounding there from
Yeah.
maybe my home life where I really wanted people to understand me. So now I have a podcast and I just get
And I
people to
love
understand.
that.
So
Yeah.
you're bullied, right? And it was some of it because you were like a tomboy.
I was
Sometimes
I was
that
a
plays,
redhead,
yeah.
freckle face. I had braces. Like I had all the things that people like to make fun of. Like
Okay.
I was
You're like,
the
we'll cut to a picture
definition
right
of
now. We'll
that.
cut to a picture.
Exactly right. I wish I had one, but I
It's a
don't.
video podcast, guys. I had Maddie send me. I'm kidding. Let's do a little collage, a little slideshow of just you
Yeah.
as a kid. No.
It was just like I had oversized Levi's, a baggy shirt, and I just was not the like I didn't have a sense of fashion.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what that meant, but I was really
Okay.
bullied. And then
Okay.
after that, I remember switching, going to high school, and I went to a completely different high school out of my district. So I
Okay.
didn't know anybody. My mom put me in marching band, and I was like, oh my gosh, like it's just gonna be 4 more years of this horribleness. Like,
No offense to marching band. I don't know why I'm laughing, but
oh no,
yeah,
it
yeah.
was nerdy, like
You have
a
to be a nerd
band
then.
nerd, like
Wait, what did you
but
do? Were you the what did you do again?
I played
Sorry.
the clarinet.
Okay, so you're like walking, and
It was
like
that's
kind
a
of looks like
flute.
a flute. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a flute.
yeah.
So the clarinet's down. It's like the black one. But it was that was an experience, I want to say.
No
But
offense
going
to
into
kids
high,
out there. If that's what you want to do, just be
absolutely do
do
it.
what you want. But yeah,
And
I
honestly,
know
in the long run, I ended up loving it and appreciating it. So, but when I went to high
okay.
school, I was the new girl. Nobody knew me, and I was very quiet. I didn't really want to make friends. I just kind of was waiting for people to come be like, "Hey, be my friend." Cuz like I just in band I made a couple friends, but I was embarrassed to hang out with them because we were in band together and I thought it was like really lame. Um but I feel like I was always trying to fit in. Like I was very good at just like adjusting to my habitats no matter what it was, and just
Mhm.
being this person with this group and this person with this group. And like I was super good at soccer, but I didn't really like click with the girls I
Mhm.
played soccer with. Um, but I think so sophomore year is when I started smoking weed,
Okay.
which was just like very, that was nothing. Like it was known that like everybody smokes weed, right? Like it's just what I did. But like I was very stupid about it. I brought weed to school. I would get caught with pipes all the time. My mom and dad would get phone calls at least once a month, like, "Oh, your daughter got caught with smoking weed in the science bathroom." Like, why couldn't I just wait till I was off campus? Like I never will know. Like
So this is like 2000. Okay, you're seven
so
years.
2007.
2007. Okay, yeah, I was trying to
Yeah.
figure out when this. Okay.
So
Yeah, more
I
common. Yeah, more acceptable. I mean, way more
exactly. And
normal. Yeah,
I was like, why like I thought it was so cool to like smoke weed in the bathroom, but like I was getting caught every time. So really it wasn't that cool. Like
they're
and
like the sprinklers keep going off. We should find a different spot, guys.
exactly. So and then that's when I got asked to like eat this ecstasy pill at school.
Oh
It was
wow, at school?
Oh, it was like 9 in the morning. And she's like, "You want to do this?" I'm like, "Yes." Like, absolutely, I
You're
do.
like,
Like,
where's the rave? No rave, just
there
school.
was like, yeah, there was like no question that I was going to eat this ecstasy. So I ate it and I was like super nervous, but I didn't feel anything. And I was like, "Oh, that was bunk. That was like weird. I don't know what I did, but whatever." But
Right.
then, like,
Right.
at the end of the day, like, sixth period, I started like completely losing my mind in class. Like my eyes were rolling back in the back of my head. I was like rubbing on everybody's clothes. Like my
Hmm.
pupils were completely dilated. And everyone was laughing at me because I looked like a crazy person in school. I remember doing that and feeling like this is amazing. Like I love everybody and everybody loves me. And this is just like the perfect, like, why doesn't everybody do this all the time?
Right.
I
Yeah.
feel a lot of my story has like, there was no like limit. Like it wasn't like, oh, I'll just do a little bit. It was like 0 to 100 really quick. And I don't
Right.
know when to stop. And that's like full throttle for me all the time. So once I tried that one time, it was like, within that year, I got expelled from school for, honestly, I can't really remember exactly. Like, there was so much going on, fighting and doing drugs at school and failing all of my classes. Like, I failed PE because I didn't want to dress out. Like, it was just like stuff like that, that like I was very defiant in school and I didn't care anymore. So I got expelled from Fountain Valley High School and I went to this continuation school called Valley Vista, which is, in my eyes, like a pretty stupid school to have because you put all the bad people in one school and you meet everybody that just like is as bad as you.
Yeah.
Like, so I go there and I meet some of, well, at the time they were like my best friends.
Okay.
And that's when I first tried methamphetamine and I
Okay.
felt like like I had arrived and that was my purpose in life, was to smoke meth and live life. Like that feeling I could never really describe to you. It was just like what it was and how it was, and that's what I'm going to do.
So
Um
you felt like ecstasy, like
Ecstasy
meth
was
was
fun. It
better.
was super chill, but
Meth was
like
better. Okay.
it was, I don't know, meth was just like my calling. I don't know why. It was also like the act of doing it and like getting it ready and like the whole process of it was
Right.
just like my whole favorite thing of life.
Yeah, well, I think I'm not an expert in drug abuse or drugs, really. I mean, the most thing I ever did was like get high in Colorado, and like one time I think I had like PCP was in the weed or something, and I
Oh
just got
yeah.
high for a day. And I worked at like Safeway, which is Vaughn's out here, but like
Yeah.
Safeway, and I like didn't go to work, and like I always got in trouble when my mom went out of town. She was a flight attendant, so it was always like, I don't think my dad knows what's going on with me, even though he probably did, you know. So I didn't do that very much, but it seems like there's a natural. It's a curiosity, right? Like that's usually how people
Always.
tend to fall into things, right? And then the other layer is kind of some of what you're talking about, which is like, oh, I want to feel understood. I dress weird. Maybe part
Accepted.
of me, yeah, exactly. Maybe part of me actually is weird. You know, it's like everyone's weird in their own way, and then we do things that can make that more. So anyway, yeah, okay. So because I've heard with ecstasy that there is sort of this like your senses, or maybe with all drugs,
Oh
right? Your
yeah. All your
senses
serotonin is
are
pushed
heightened,
out of
and
your head.
yeah, what you see in movies usually like is like I don't know if that's accurate, but they try to portray that in movies sort of this like you're just you're just kind of lost in your own.
Yes.
So you're 16,
Yeah.
16, and the meth is starting to, and you're doing it like, are you doing it every day?
So it started with just like when I hung out with this group of friends, which like it wasn't a lot, but like when I first started doing it, I would be high for 2 days, like doing it one time.
Okay,
It was
right,
just
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
no
That makes sense.
sleep. But like in the midst of all hanging out with these people, like every other drug was introduced to me. Like, and I am talking like, let's do acid at school. Let's fucking smoke coke on weed and see what happens. Like it
Yeah.
was just like anything that we could get, we do. And like even Xanax and like pills, downers were never my thing. I liked really being alert and knowing what was going on. But like if that's all we had, like I'm down to do it. Like it was just
Hmm.
anything to get me out of myself,
Right.
which is crazy to think because like what it was myself wasn't that bad. Like it was just I
You
just
were just like
wanted
kind of bored, or
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And
yeah,
like I just did everything that I could. So that was and there was one bathroom in my continuation school. I'm talking like one bathroom for the whole school and I would sit in there and smoke weed and the security guard would be like, "Maddie, get out of the bathroom." Like they knew it was me. It was just horrible.
there's a lot of bathroom stories in this talk so far.
It is. There was a lot of bathroom stories, and honestly, I bathrooms were like my safe place. It throughout my whole story, and it's very weird.
Well, I feel like too, this, sorry, this is not meant to be a stereotype, but I feel like women, like, or you at the time, young lady, sometimes I feel like girls get away with things a little bit more, especially if you're like kind of cute, which I'm assuming you
Yes,
probably were. So
definitely tried that a lot in my
anyway,
older
okay,
days.
I'm just guessing, right? But like if you're like a guy and maybe you're like the athlete, good looking type,
Yeah,
like, oh, I'll talk myself out of this. Usually guys
exactly.
get it kind of worse. It may sure everybody gets in trouble, but it seems like if you're a little bit like charming and charismatic, you're like they just like let it slide,
Yeah,
cute girl over here, which doesn't help because you're like you probably needed someone to be a little bit hard on you, maybe.
little sterner
Sure.
with
Yeah.
me, right? But I
Yeah.
at that school, I ended up getting into like some fights. I owed a lot of people money because I was getting these drugs like fronted to me. I
Yeah, where
and
were you getting money to pay
I
for
didn't have
these?
money.
Oh, okay.
There was
So
no
did
money
you work? You
involved in
didn't
it.
work a job. You just how did
I
you?
didn't work a job. I hung out with people that had them, or I would get fronts and like promise this amount of money that I never had. Okay, like it was
Yeah,
a
it's like what
bad
did you
road
do
to
as a
start
kid?
on.
You yeah, you work at McDonald's, or, yeah,
Exactly.
or
And I
whatever.
didn't want to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I ended up being on a search and seizure list at this school where every time I walked into that school, they would strip search me before walking into the school because I was such a flight risk for like everybody at school.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I ended up getting expelled from there as well. And I pretty much dropped out of high school at this point. It
Okay.
was
You're 16 years old. 17.
16, 17.
Okay.
I might be 17 by this time. I'm not good at
Yeah.
these years are such a blur for me. So roughly junior year, probably I dropped out of high school.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and I I ran away from home. I remember this blatantly. I ran away and I lived on a boat in somebody's storage unit. Not mine. I don't know whose it was. We don't know whose boat it was. We just crawled on the boat and stayed as long as we could. And we would just get
Ew.
high and drunk and do weird things, and that was what I did. And my sister would drive around for she was pregnant with her first son, driving around at all hours looking for me because her little sister was like missing. And
Yeah, yeah.
I
And
didn't
she was kind of sober at this time too,
she
or
was,
something,
yeah,
because
she
she's
never
7 years older.
after she got clean and when she was a teenager, she never really went off the deep end again. Like she stayed on a very straight and narrow path, and like super proud of her for that, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
um
Okay.
but I was
Right.
just a crazy kid. I just wouldn't stop. Like I somehow stayed in soccer through all this and like got offered a scholarship to go to college and all these things, but
Yeah, wow.
I was like, no, like I'd rather smoke meth. Like that sounds like a way better like life
Hmm.
choice for me at this point.
Interesting. Okay. Hmm.
And
Well,
I,
when you're in it, you're in it. You know,
oh yeah, I
I
was
know I'm
in it.
smiling about some of these things. I don't know why living in a boat made me laugh, but
Oh, it makes me
that's
laugh.
how I
We're
deal with
good.
these stories. If you come on here, I just
No,
laugh. Like, you
you
lived
know,
in a
like we
boat.
would
Oh, that sounds funny.
it was like at one point I was sleeping in my friend's closet. Her dad didn't know I was there, and I had to like stay in this closed closet all evening while her dad was there.
Whoa.
And I would just sit in
Okay.
there and smoke drugs in this little sliding closet. Like it wasn't a walk-in closet. It was like I was on the bottom level. Like, oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
it's kind of like, I mean, I'm a very big movie TV show person. I'm sure not everyone's like that. Some people are like probably annoyed with movies, but I'm always like, yeah, this sounds like a movie, right? Or this sounds like a memoir of like,
Yeah.
200 pages of just chaos. And
Oh yeah, it was
yeah,
chaos.
and the spiritual part of this is, whether you believe in God or not. It's like, I you listen to people's stories, a lot of times there's a lot of mercy and grace, right? That's going on. Like, I almost died 20 times, but I didn't. And it's like, whether you believe in God or not, like that seems to happen to a lot of people where like you thought you were getting away with
Absolutely.
it for a long time. So, okay, so you're like, so you're hitting the bottom. You're going towards the bottom, which is now you're not in school. Now
Well,
you're living around and
I'm
people's
going towards a
places.
bottom where I never really thought like was a bottom. I didn't ever think I was in a bad place. Like I thought I was doing what every teenager does. I thought I wasn't that bad. And it was just a phase for me, like I like to say. Like so like at this time I was doing all this, and to be completely honest, the next couple of years were a really big blur for me. I had a couple jobs. I stole out of all their cash registers. I got arrested. I went to jail, like, and I met a man who was the love of my life, and I really thought he was the one I was going to marry, and like he was my meth dealer, and I think that's why I fell in love with him,
Okay.
like um he he is
Love
now
love and drugs.
he is my daughter's dad.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
We are
Yeah.
not together, so it's just from that point forward we got into credit card fraud, identity theft. We got into a lot of trouble with that, and like going to jail was a very dark time for me. I thought that that was going to be my bottom. I thought that was when I was like, okay, can't get much worse, right? But like when I got out of jail, the only place I knew where to go was my drug dealer's house. Like that was how I knew how to like get out of why I felt like this, and how to exit those feelings was to get high again.
Hmm.
Um so So pretty much after jail, after the love of my life,
How old do you think you were with the jail?
18.
Okay, okay. So, oh, so you were there as like
Oh
as an
yeah. I was in county jail. So
Okay.
after that, we were gonna move away and get away from drugs and like start a new life. So we moved up north to Pleasanton, California, which is kind of by like San Francisco.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And he had a really good job opportunity up there, and we went and lived there with his mom. And it was not a good environment. It was not a good not a good choice for us at
Right.
all.
Right.
Because what I've learned in AA is like wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you can move across the country, but like if you want drugs, you're gonna find them, right? So what did we do?
Hmm.
We found them.
Yeah.
We found them, and everything went to shit like super fast. And I was fighting with my mom-in-law. I want to say we weren't married, but we were like living with her, and they were really not in the best place either.
Hmm.
Um, and I ended up getting pregnant. So this time I'm about, I don't know, 20 now. I'm
Okay.
about
Yeah.
20s.
Yeah.
So we lived there for about a year. Um, when I got pregnant, I was like, this is it. Like, this is it. This is when we're going to get sober and our lives are going to change. This little baby is going to change
Yeah.
our lives. And
Hmm.
I really did
Interesting. Yeah.
believe that.
Yeah.
I felt like I had no choice. Obviously, I wasn't going to do drugs while I was pregnant. Like, that was kind of like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And he was like, okay. And my mom said we could move back to Orange County and have this baby if I promised not to bring drugs with me and if I was like a changed person. Um, so I did. I was like, absolutely, we got this. Um, during my pregnancy, I smoked weed throughout my whole pregnancy. It's nothing that I'm
Okay.
very proud of, but I didn't do speed, and I thought that was like what I needed the most help with, you know.
Hmm.
Um, my daughter's dad definitely never stopped doing drugs.
Okay.
He hid it from me, and he would do anything he could get his hands on, and he would get these little jobs and lose jobs because he stole a lot, and just very toxic relationship. So now my daughter is born. She her name is Marley, and I felt like this is my reason. Like, why even go
Hmm.
back to like what we were doing? And I really
Right.
did feel that for a while. When I had her and I was breastfeeding and I was doing good, I was smoking weed and like I would drink a little bit here and there, but like I didn't even have the thought of like wanting to do speed again or do drugs or anything like that.
Okay.
I was good for a while. I would drink and drink, but like when she turned to about like one or two, no, two, I started drinking very heavily. I was also in a very toxic, abusive relationship that
Okay.
made me want to like numb myself a
Yeah.
lot. I'm talking like mental, verbal, physical, like abuse. Like it
Hmm.
was, it was,
Hmm.
it messed up my mental state of mind for sure. I felt like I was nothing. He was cheating on me with all my friends. It was a very dark time for me.
Hmm.
And I had this baby that was like, she did nothing wrong, but I was like drinking heavily to like forget about
Yeah.
why life was the way it was. And
Yeah. Well, you had like thank you for sharing your story, by the way.
you're
And
welcome.
I don't even think I did an intro. Like, hey guys, this is Madeline. We just went right into it. So 30 minutes in. Hey, thanks for being on
We're
the
good.
podcast. No, no, no. We're having fun. We're having fun. But I mean, it's no, you are talking about serious things, and we are laughing because I think for in many ways this stuff is behind you, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Remember, I mean, our memory is a powerful thing. I mean, memories are like I almost died 10 years ago. I'm still remembering it, but I'm not the person I was then, you know. And
Yeah.
that's called change and hope and stuff. But I like what you said earlier about wherever you go, there you are, because I think that's part of the that's part of being plugged into the matrix, right? Which is just, oh, if I could only get things that are outside of me to change. Like, oh, well, I hate the traffic in California, so I'm gonna move back to I used to live in Colorado or Kansas City. And it's like, okay, well, the traffic might be like a little bit less, but I'll still be the same. My brain
Yeah.
is the same. The habits that I've had are going to be the same. So I
Yeah.
think it's interesting that like part of the healing journey is facing yourself like right where you are, like right in the middle of all the darkness and the pain, but also this
Absolutely.
thing, the other there's layers to all of this, right? It's like the first layer was like feeling misunderstood as a kid, and then the second layer was like, then running away from home and then dropping out of school. Then the third layer is like you meet the guy and then you have the kid, and then the other layer is then, I mean, I grew up with my dad being verbally abusive, not physically abusive, so I know that there's a difference. But I'm assuming you were just afraid a lot. you
Yeah.
know that's what usually abuse does to kind of our minds, is like we're
And it
just
was a lot of like codependency.
yeah. And then, but I mean, I like what you're saying about having a kid. I don't have kids, so I'm not fully like aware of what hope the things that change. I think when anyone has a child, it's not like, people will be like, well, I'm not ready to be a parent, and then it's like you have this kid, and I
Yeah.
know it's different for women than men, but like it's like an instinct. You're just like immediately
Like, this
any
is
kind.
my reason.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
this is
Any
it.
kind of selfishness that you've had, it doesn't completely disappear, but you,
Yeah.
you just naturally you push all of your concerns to the back of your mind, and you're like,
Absolutely.
I gotta do better for this kid. But you're saying that you didn't do better right away. That
I tried my best and
yeah,
I thought
yeah,
my doing better was
right.
not smoking meth. Like,
Okay,
honestly,
but still kind
that
of doing some other
I was
things.
drinking, I was
Yeah,
smoking weed.
yeah,
Weed was never like, weed was always around me, and it was just, it wasn't ever a bad thing. And like, to be completely honest, like, I don't think weed is a bad thing still. Like, it's not something
right.
I want to do. It's mind altering, but like, it's like it helps people. It's like everybody has their own judgment. Like, I am so, like, a lot of people say California sober because they smoke weed, but they don't do everything else.
Okay.
Like, that's an
Yeah.
honest thing you hear in AA
Yeah.
meetings. Like, people literally say that, which is fine for them, whatever their journey is.
Yeah, well, the thinking is because I've been in meetings too, and I've had my own struggles. A lot of it's a little all or nothing, which
Yes,
in life, like if you see a therapist, they'll be like, "Well, how is your all or nothing thinking?" Like that's not always good, because it's like,
yeah,
no, just like it's okay to, but if you have an addictive tendency, which I think
addictive personality, absolutely.
that's the reason why there's sort of harsh lines like, okay, well, you could do that and you might be okay, but if you're really trying to get sober, you need to kind of get rid of.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, I got you. So you're struggling through like 10 years ago now, this like 9 years ago ish.
Yeah.
You're like trying to be a parent, and then and then what do you do with the guy? Do you, like
We end up
or
splitting up.
yeah, okay,
That he was in and out of jail every year. He was going to jail back and forth. We
okay,
ended up breaking up and splitting up, and he wasn't really present in Marley's life. Um, I really think he tried his best, but he just didn't know what was best.
okay,
To be
okay,
completely honest. So me, I was doing little serving jobs, bartending, serving, anything I could. I lived with my parents, and I just started drinking like very heavily.
okay.
It was, my mom told me, like, you really need to slow down on your drinking. And I was just like, what are you talking about? Like, it's legal. I'm drinking. I'm legally allowed to do this. Like, like, it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
just, I don't see what the problem is.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, you're going back to what your experience was like in high school, where you
Yeah.
went from like
But
zero
like it's
to
like zero
yeah,
to full throttle. There's no
yeah,
like, let me have a cocktail. It's like, no, let me drink the whole handle. Like, it wasn't ever like, I can't have one drink. It's like
right.
zero to blackout. That's
Yeah,
what I wanted.
moderation, moderation. Yeah,
So I feel like this part of my story is the most important because it was what got me into my darkest hole, which was like drinking, being a single mom, and being reintroduced to methamphetamine again.
Okay.
And so I had not done speed for 5 years. And I drank and did whatever, but like I remember trying it for my first time again and being like, this is it. Like
Hmm.
now I can be a full-time single mom and like get all these things done and never sleep and like just like be a great mom. Like I was
I got
fully
you. Yeah, yeah.
convinced that like that was an actual thing,
You're like a
which
optimistic
absolutely
addict.
tweaker. I don't even know what my
Yeah,
problem
yeah,
was.
yeah. Yeah. Well, no, it's. I mean, I think it's. Well, I don't know if normal is the right word, but it's it's rational in
Yeah.
the sense of what you're in
And I
something that
was
someone could go, well, you should get out of it, but you're like, yeah, but I'm still functioning okay, or all the things
exactly.
we say. So to you, it's really
And
not
it was
that.
justifying it. I
Yeah,
was justifying
yeah,
everything I was doing. And also, like, I wasn't losing anything. So, like, I was able to still work and be a mom and, like, do drugs and drink. So, like, why wouldn't I keep doing that?
right, right.
So, my parents have lived in the same apartment, like our townhome, for 35 years. And they decided they wanted to buy a house in Big Bear and move. And I remember being like, well, I'm going to stay here. I'll take over the rent.
Hmm.
And that's really when I started spiraling like super duper hard. My dad would live with me during the week in the beginning because he still had his job and he was about to retire. And so my dad would live with me during the week, but like my dad drank. We drank together and we loved to drink. Like we would drink a whole handle of tequila and then we'd go out to the bars and we'd drink more. And like it didn't matter. Like that was just like, it was fun.
That's how you
Um,
guys bonded.
we bonded a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
through
Okay,
that all. But I was
got you.
also
Yeah.
on top of like drinking that with my dad. I was running upstairs doing lines of speed. My daughter was just standing there like watching me do all this, and
Okay. Hmm.
um
Interesting. Yeah, yeah.
she was present. She was like physically there, but I was never a present mom. Like I was very
Right.
not there mentally ever.
Yeah, well, it's hard to be based. Yeah, hard to be based on what you're sharing. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it was just that's when my dad finally moved up there full time is when I was partying all the time. My daughter was just like I don't even remember where my daughter was half the time, but I had her all the time. I was blacking out for 2 weeks at a time sometime and not remembering anything that happened. Um, but I somehow kept my kid alive. I don't know. And that was like what I was like, well, like we're still good. So like whatever. Like I
Hmm.
guess that was like it for me. Like as long as Marley was like eating and healthy, which she probably wasn't, like to be completely
Sure.
honest. I was
Hmm.
it was super bad. Like I always said, like if I have $20 left in my bank account and as long as I buy Marley food instead of drugs, I don't have a problem. But that's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that's not what it was like
yeah.
because she it was just she saw like me at my darkest. So like
Right. Yeah.
by the time that I finally was like functioning, that functioning turned into not functioning. I had a job that I had called out of all the time. My dog died all the time. I don't have a dog. Like there was just
Yeah,
things
you
that
can
I
only
did,
use that once.
but I used it like 6 times. So
Like, how
I
many dogs do you have? You're like, you start making up other pets. You're like, well, we have a parrot, and we no.
yeah,
Sorry.
exactly. So I finally lost like my that apartment. My mom was like, I'm done paying this rent. You're not doing anything. You're just killing yourself. Um, my sister took my daughter from me. Well, I
Hmm.
say that like that, but it was
Like
what's
out of
best for Marley.
protection for
But
her,
like
or something like that.
during that time, I was like, how dare you like want to take my daughter? But like in the back of my mind, I was like, thank God. Like I don't have to deal with this anymore and I can just do what I want and get high like when I want.
What year was that happened? Do you remember?
2019.
Okay, all right. So you're getting towards the
Yeah, because this was
sober.
like
Yeah,
my last year of using because I became homeless. And here we go, like, and I lost my job. And here we go back to these bathrooms, right? That I talked about in the beginning. I lived in a
yeah,
public
yeah.
bathroom on the
Okay, yeah.
beach.
I don't know
Like,
why we're laughing so much, guys. I think something's wrong with me. So
well, it's good to
no,
laugh about
no, it's okay.
stuff
It
now,
is.
right?
No, I know. There's I mean, yeah, it's a mental health podcast. I've been plenty of like, hey guys, I'm about to talk about something hard, and
Yeah,
but no, I mean, you're obviously doing it now. So some of it's a little humorous looking back. Like it's not funny that the thing you
exactly.
said about the $20 with the food. I'm like, that's not funny. It
It's just
kind of
crazy that that's what our thinking does.
yeah, well, yeah, you're just
I
and
was just trying to justify and make it like make excuses for why I wasn't as bad as I was, you know? So like I mean, my body was completely physically addicted to alcohol. I couldn't get up in the morning without drinking. My body wouldn't function. I was shaking uncontrollably. I'd vomit. There was times that I would drink and vomit and I would drink my vomit because it had alcohol in it. Like I was completely gone and I was eating methamphetamine and drinking about 3 bottles of Jameson a day with a 30 rack of beer and like functioning. I don't know how. Um
yeah, that's hard on your liver and all of your organs too as well.
yeah.
So you're okay. So you're because I did have a question for you, but I'll save it for when you start talking about like the getting sober part. But like, so you're getting there though. So you're in 2019, and then like so when you lose your daughter, you're still in the midst of your like
Yeah.
chaos.
That
But
was
you were
probably
you
the worst. And
thinking,
then once
okay,
that
all right,
happened, I just like I became homeless. I started doing sexual favors or anything I needed to get my drugs and alcohol.
okay.
And I went down a path. Like I went down and I was in a dark, dark hole. And I finally ran in front of a car on PCH after being up for 8 days and I got flown 15 feet in the air. I don't want to say I was trying to kill myself, but I didn't care if I lived or died at that point. Um, and I like got up and I kept running. I didn't even like stay on the floor and I was dripping blood and I decided that I think I like need some help. Like I think maybe I
Hmm.
need to get sober.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
Getting sober was never like a thing. Like it wasn't going to be a thing. And really like it wasn't ever like permanent sobriety that I wanted. It was like I think I just need like a break, like a tolerance break, like a break from the streets, like whatever it is that I needed. That's what I felt like. I just needed something to be different. It was really, really hard and tiring to find out where I was going to sleep at night, what I
Yeah.
was going to do.
Hmm.
So this part is super blurry for me, but all I remember is I didn't have insurance. So I drank myself into like a alcohol poisoning and got rushed to the hospital so I could get emergency medical and get into a detox. That was like my best thinking got me. So
Hmm.
that didn't work. Um, my mom ended up picking me up at a park
Hmm.
and I had drank a whole bottle of Jameson and sprinkled methamphetamine on some pudding, and that was the last time I ever drank or used. And I will
This
never
was
forget.
April 2019, right?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Yeah, yeah.
So I go and I detoxed at my parents' house for a couple days, and my detox from meth, not a really bad detox besides like fuzziness and tiredness and like I pretty much didn't sleep for 11 years. I feel like I just like it was just, but the alcohol physical detox was really really bad, and she dragged me to an AA meeting, and I cried in that whole meeting, and a guy named Kevin came up to me and gave me numbers to these places where you can get sober for women. And one of those places is where I ended up going. It's called the Lynn House in Costa Mesa. It's a
Okay.
woman's indigenous shelter for women. So it's like a homeless shelter for women, but it's AA based. So it's 12 women in a house. And I got in. And so this is where like my sobriety journey kind of starts.
Hmm.
Um, I was at the Lynn House for, okay, I walked into the Lynn House, didn't own a bra, underwear, nothing. I had what was on my clothes, and that was like it. Like I didn't own anything, and my parents weren't going to go buy me anything because they couldn't care less what happened. They cared, but they just were over me. They didn't think
They
this was
weren't
a
taking. They weren't thinking, oh, this is gonna
exactly.
stick or
They're like,
something
you
like
have to
that. Yeah.
prove to us a lot.
Got
So
it. Okay. Hmm. So how long were you there for?
I was there for 9 months in total.
Wow.
Um,
So is it like a
I
sober living
so
kind of
it's
thing?
30 days for free. You don't have to
Okay.
have insurance. It's 30 days for free. And then after that, you can move to like um where you it's called transitional, where you pay rent weekly and you have to get a job and you have to do things for the house.
Okay. Got it.
And then that's for 6 months. And then you can do another 6 months as like a senior resident where you kind of take care of the whole house. So in that first 30 days, I did 90 meetings in 30 days. So 3 meetings a day we were doing. And it
Hmm.
was pretty insane. But I feel like I'm not too sure exactly when it clicked, but I decide like I didn't have a choice but to say yes and okay and like to listen to these other women and like realize I'm a piece of shit and like I'm a drug addict and I'm an
Hmm.
alcoholic and I have like alcoholics, like it's not a drinking problem, it's a thinking problem. And like that's kind of where I was. Like I had no other choice unless I wanted to go back to the streets.
Hmm.
I didn't
So,
want to
so
do
yeah, yeah. So okay. So I had a thought when you're talking about your daughter, and then you kind of just, well, I don't think you think this. This is what you thought then. Like, well, you're not a piece of shit. I mean, obviously.
well,
Okay, guys, it's taken us about 45 minutes to establish you're not a bad. No, I'm kidding. But I think that I know I think it's an interesting thing to say out loud because I think shame is just causes a lot of problems as much as the addiction does, right? The
yeah,
shame of the thing, your identity is in the idea that you're an addict, which is why some people might disagree with treating addiction as a disease, as like a way of helping people get better, right? Like some people don't think it's a disease, but you're describing, a lot of craziness around this thing. So whether it's a disease or not, how you think about yourself, that like you're saying, that's what you had to work through. Cause like, but I'm curious, like, have you had to forgive yourself for like how you were with your daughter? Has that been part of the 4 years?
forgiving myself came as like I mean absolutely you have to like kind of move
Yeah,
forward from that. Part of AA is like doing an amends, right? But I wasn't going to
for
sit
sure.
down with my 6-year-old daughter and tell her I'm really sorry for doing this and doing this. So what it comes down to is a living amends of just like being the best mom I can to her from now on and like not doing those things again, right? So
I got you. Yeah. Well, because yeah, that's a big step. And in my time of doing Celebrate Life, with my church and stuff, that was always the thing where people are like, well, this is where the rubber meets the road. Like, you can come here and you can talk about how your life's unmanageable. But once you get to the list of like people I screwed over
yeah,
myself, screwed over my mom, or whatever, that's where like that's not like an overnight thing where you just like
absolutely not.
turn a switch like, oh, I've forgiven myself, let's go on to the next thing. And if you're in a spiritual community, maybe you treat it like that too, like, oh, I just need to give it all to God and then I move on. And it's like, no, I don't think it works like that. But you like liking yourself is part of sobriety. and you just
Absolutely.
being like okay with who you are, even though you're remembering all of the darkness. That's what's important,
Yes.
I think, for people to be like, no, you did some messed up things, and sure, people got hurt, but then it's like that's part of the. I was just curious because it's like I don't have a kid, so I'm sure if I had a kid, it would be like I'd have a different view. Like so,
Yeah.
because and how's your relationship with your daughter now, though? Like you guys are
So
best friends?
now I have full custody of her.
Okay,
I
okay,
have her full time, which is a
okay.
blessing and a curse at the same time.
Full
She's
time.
got attitude like me.
And she's 9 or 10,
Yeah,
almost 10. Okay,
yeah. So I
that's like my
mean,
oldest nephew's 10. So yeah,
I'm super grateful to like be able to wake up and take her to school every day and like go through this journey of life with her by my side. It definitely like everything has its difficulties, but I'm able to do this now. Like I
yeah,
get to be her mom. Like I get to argue with her and tell her no, but like at least I get to do that, you
yeah.
know. So
So
it's things
so you
that I'm
get
really
sober. I was
grateful
gonna
for.
say, what else helped you? So when we were still in the sobriety part though, but like, so you're going to meetings because 4 years, that's a long time. I mean, that's
Yes.
like 1,200 days or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's a lot.
Failed math in ninth grade. People will be like, hold on, got an assistant in here. Hey, what's 365 times 4? Carry the 10. No, kidding. No, but that's a long time. I mean, that's like you literally could go to a meeting and say, I have 1,600 days or something like that. But like, what do you also attribute the sobriety to besides this sort of like relationship you have with your kid? Like, what else have you? I'm sure you've learned a lot of things in the last 4 years.
I've definitely learned a lot.
Yeah,
What I mean, I've learned that like coming to understand a God of my own understanding has been a huge thing for me, getting very spiritual and like learning that like God's got me no matter what.
right,
Just really like knowing that like I have to get out of God's way and let him work because like when I get my hands messy in my own stuff, like that's when things get complicated. But when I just let things go and like things just happen to like flow very nicely in my life. Um,
hmm.
I've been a server and bartender my whole life and I finally am now in management. I'm a manager at Yard House and
Okay, nice.
I absolutely love it. Um, it it's the consistency I need to be a single mom. The hours aren't perfect, but I've worked with it pretty well.
Yeah,
Working around alcohol is not for everybody in sobriety. I definitely want to say that because
sure.
not everybody like should or wants to. It works for me. I love the environment so much. Like just because I'm sober, like I still love the environment of like a bar or like the people that come with that, like that energy. I love the energy. Um, Serving people beers, serving people that, like that's still super fun. I bartend
Right.
private events as well with my friend that owns her own bartending business,
Oh, cool.
and I absolutely love it. So but
Hmm.
before I could ever do that, I had to have the obsession lifted of alcohol. Like I had to go through some pretty gnarly, like honest truths with a sponsor and like get
Hmm.
to know like where I was and what I don't want to be anymore. Sobriety is such a beautiful thing. I never thought I would ever say that because
Hmm.
to be honest, I didn't think it was like I thought everybody was high on something. Like to be completely honest, like I was like
Well, possibly, yeah. I mean, if it's
you
not
have to
substances,
like have
it's something. But
something like to like make you laugh or smile.
yeah.
But like
Well, it's actually interesting that you use the word obsession because I think maybe that word, like, I've been in church my whole life, so there was like this delirious song that was like he was saying obsession, but he means God. And you're right, and you're like, okay, that's a little strange. Like you don't see God, but you're obsessed with God, right? Or obsession sounds like watching like The Notebook or
yes,
something, right? Like Ryan Gosling's like obsessed with this girl, and you're like,
yeah.
is that how? It's supposed to work, like, okay, I mean, they're two good looking people, or whatever,
Yeah.
but no, obsession that's a real, I mean, like, I think wholeheartedness in my experience of like faith it is a little all or nothing. Like following this God path is like, hey, you need to surrender your whole life. And so I think when there's addiction, you are surrendered. You're just surrendered to the addiction. And that
Yes.
thing in you that wants to be wholehearted, that doesn't go away. That's like a thing that everybody has. It's just misdirected, right? Like
Yes.
it gets directed towards violence or whatever. And so you're obsessed now with being sober. Or like you're
Yeah.
saying, you're losing the obsession of alcohol and like takes that's taken 4 years or how a long time,
So
right?
what I like to say is like when
Yeah.
I was like drinking and doing drugs, right? It was like I
Yeah.
was trying to fill some hole inside of me. And
Sure.
like
Yeah.
when I got sober, I had to fill that hole with something else, or I it was gonna stay empty and I was gonna end up getting drunk or high again. So like
Yeah.
that hole has been filled with spirituality, like God, my sobriety, like going to meetings and like giving away what was so freely given to me in AA, like the
Hmm.
steps, like helping women,
Hmm.
helping other people,
Well,
like sharing.
that's one of the steps, right? It's one of the
Yes,
steps you give back or whatever. Yeah.
exactly. That's actually the last step. So it's just like giving away what's so freely given to us. Like go help someone else when you're in your head or you feel bad. Like go help someone else. Go ask someone else how they're doing. Like get
Yeah, for
out of
sure.
yourself. Like it's
For
not
sure.
about you all the time, you know? Because
Yeah, well, no, that's true, and that is also a very common thing with these mental health conversations or
yeah,
mental illness, although some people find offense to saying that it's an illness, right? But it's like, yeah, even suicidal thinking, very self-involved. Now,
yes.
if you're in it, because I've been in it, right, and someone says, "Hey, Jared, just stop thinking about yourself," right? You would probably get mad at them
Like,
because
what are
you're
you
like,
talking about?
exactly, you're like, well, I've been thinking about myself all day, every day for my whole life. Slash, if you're in a really hard place, it's not a light switch. Like, hey, just get your mind off yourself, man.
Yeah.
But no, long term, you need to learn how to work on your thoughts. Where everybody's instinct is to be self obsessed, right?
So
It's just to
that's
move.
just like
Yeah,
part of
yeah.
being a human. Yeah.
For sure, but I like, okay, so here's the other question too, though, is like, so you're saying that there's this whole, right, which that, okay, but it's also the relationship that people have, um which is why I'm interested in these conversations. Like, it's also a relationship that you have to like stress and pain, because in the past, any kind of stress, I'm guessing, you just dealt with it with the
Yeah.
substances. But
Oh,
now to
yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
sober is to be very in touch, which then can create a lot of compassion for people. You're just like totally in touch with any kind of discomfort you feel. It's like, well, what do you do now?
So meditation, I
Yeah.
meditate every morning for 15 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and meditation looks very different every single day for me. Sometimes it's just closing my eyes and having a minute with God. Sometimes I read scripture from like my AA book or any book that I have that's AA related that gives like quotes of the day or whatever.
Mhm.
I just need to have that mindset every day. Also, I work in a very, very busy restaurant and talk about like getting off of a 12-hour shift and like having to decompress used to just be getting drunk. So now
Right.
it's like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so now it's like breathing, meditating, listening to meditation music, like
Yeah.
taking a nice shower, like things that don't always calm people down, but like I've learned how to substitute the drugs and alcohol with self-care. Um, but my higher power is like the main thing for me.
Yeah.
He is like I say higher power instead of God because in AA I've learned a lot about like some people have different higher powers and like that's totally fine. So
Right.
I always say higher power. Mine is God. So I do like to I don't know. I leave a broad statement because
Yeah,
some people
I
do get
get that.
offended by that.
Yeah, I've tried to do that
Um,
on this podcast too. Like I have a bias towards American church because that's all I've known.
there we go.
And there's obviously lots of deconstructing that needs to happen with some of that stuff because there's but yeah, I've had people on here who are like, no, I don't really believe what you believe, but this is what has given me hope. And it's like, yeah, man, hold on to that. I'm not, it's not a Christian
Yeah.
podcast,
No,
so
yeah, for sure.
yeah, but I got you. Well, yeah, and the faith thing is important because I think like even the whole thing you're saying about um uh you know, instead of going to the substance and meditating or the the hole in your soul or hole in your heart. I don't know which one sounds better. Hole in the,
Hole
yeah,
in the soul kind of
we all
rhymes
we
too.
all have cravings and we have a hunger for love and acceptance. And it's like, yeah, that gets really misguided a lot. Like if
Yeah,
the hunger to be understood and loved, that's not going to go away. It's just what do you do to get that? That's where I think a lot of these addiction things happen. Not every time, but it's like and now you're able to see. So what do you like sponsor people? What's your like
I do.
relationship with that now or yeah.
So so now so obviously like in the beginning it was a lot of meetings all the time and like it was a lot, but like throughout the years it had my recovery and my program has changed a little bit. My life has gotten a lot busier. I still call my sponsor a couple times a week. I sponsor women that um are willing to open up to me and go through
That's
the steps
awesome.
with me.
Rad. Yeah.
I volunteer at the Lynn House where I got sober. I go
Oh,
there and
cool.
I
Yeah.
do meetings with the girls and you know it's just like giving back and like showing them that like it's possible. Like you can be in the darkest place and like come out a bright light of sunshine. Like it
Mhm.
doesn't matter where you are, right? So like
Mhm.
that's what I like to try and remind women that are like getting sober or don't think they can do it, like that it is possible if like they really like try, you know, and they have to really want it. It's not just about like, oh, I'm doing this for my mom, I'm doing this for my daughter. Like, no, you have to do it for yourself. Like this, at the end of the day, it's for yourself. And then everything else, your family and everything, it just falls into place afterwards.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Well, man, that's beautiful. I really enjoyed hearing your story. Okay, so here, this is my kind of closing thing. So like you already kind of are saying some of it, but like what advice do you give to someone like you just said, you need to want it and I try to imagine like, you know, someone in a really bad place listening to this. Obviously not everyone would be in a bad place listening. It could be like, you know, the opposite. But like, yeah, if someone was just really struggling and they're like, they called you and you had like 5 minutes of their time, what would you say to them about like struggling with sobriety or struggling with addiction of some kind?
Um, that it's possible
Yeah.
that you know it might be a little hard in the beginning to get sober, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. That the bottom that they've hit always has a basement and that you can go lower, you know, because what sobriety is about is when you want to stop digging. Um,
Hmm.
you can always go lower. And it's all about when you want to start taking those steps up out of the hole and that like people like we've been there. Like it's so cliche to say like you can do it and like it's possible because
Hmm.
I hated hearing that in my beginning of sobriety
Well,
because I
yeah,
was
I would say probably at the beginning because it's like, oh
yeah,
wow,
it's like
you're
oh
saying this.
shut up. Like
Yeah,
I don't
you've
like
been
I
doing
don't
this
even
10
know you.
years. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
just knowing
yeah.
that like like people are here for you. They want to listen to you. They want to hear how miserable you feel and like we're here to show you that it is possible, you
Mhm.
know. Just never give up.
Yeah,
Like
I realize. Thank you. Yeah, I love that. I was gonna add to too many things to add. Like Give me your last thought. Okay, back to me. No, I'm kidding. My friend Nick, we were just talking the other day, and he was talking about, you know, going to the hospital and seeing him, and like, and he was saying that healing and people getting help is a kind of a community at thing. Like it's sort of a community responsibility that we have, I think, as like a society and as a world to help people who aren't sober. And I think if you kind of think about it like that, that makes sense with the last step in the 12 steps are like, okay, eventually you got to go and give back to people, which you're already doing that. But also it's the loneliness comes because there is no community for people. Like there or they don't the person doesn't feel like they can talk to people or open up. And like that's actually how we get better, right? Like that's well, that's part of it. I mean, you have to do a
Yes.
lot of work individually, you like, in your room or in a park or while you're
Yeah.
driving, but like you need people to help you get sober and or get stable or just get better, and then you need people to like kind of stay so I feel like that's what you're kind of sharing as well.
Yeah.
So awesome. Okay, so all right, so last thing is um you're on Instagram. Is there anything that
Yeah.
you want to promote, or what's the best way for people to get a hold of you? Like Instagram, Facebook?
Yeah, Instagram, Facebook, reach out anytime. I will definitely respond. If you need help or want to talk or need a friend to go to a meeting with, because I
Yeah,
know it's crappy going alone,
right.
I'm here. My schedule is a little busy, but I will always make time.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Have a good day. I
Okay, you
appreciate
too.
it.
Yeah.